بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين صلى الله وسلم وبارك على عبده ورسوله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أما بعد. Seeking knowledge, as is well known, the Prophet ﷺ said regarding in the Hadith Abi Hurairah and Sahih Muslim, من سلك طريقا يلتمس فيه علما سلك الله به طريقا أو سلك الله له به طريقا إلى الجنة أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, that those who tread a path to seek knowledge, Allah Azza wa Jal will make it easy for them, make it feasible for them, will steer them and guide them on a path which leads to paradise. So the Prophet ﷺ in his authentic hadith, he informs us of many things. The first thing is the general availability of ilm. That knowledge is available and open to all. And it isn't dominated or monopolized by a group, class, race, sex, age. Man salaka. And you all know when we study usul al-fiqh that man min sigh al-umum. The word men are from the things which prove total generality. So the first fa'idah from this hadith is that ilm is available to all. As we said, with any class that that men make, okay? We have concept of race, nation, gender, age, and also among one race, among one age, among one gender, there's class. Nobility, aristocrat, peasantry, middle class, rich, poor, male, female, Arab, non-Arab, Somali, non-Somali. So the Prophet ﷺ says, men, he, she, they, those. Al-Muhim, ayy wahid. Anyone who wishes to seek this path. That's one. Number two, we're going to skip one and jump to the third one. We're going from A to C. Is that seeking ilm leads to paradise. Seeking ilm is a means of going to Jannah. And this is something which is well known to you all. And then we're going to go back to B, that we skipped. And that is that seeking knowledge is a maslak. It's a tariq. It's a tariqah. It's a road. It's a path. And of course, a path needs and demands several things from he who treads upon that path. Knowledge of the path. Knowledge and desire for the destination. The wisest way of traveling the path. What to avoid, shortcuts on the path, tolls on the path, things that you have to pay, traveling expenses. All of these things are needed for the one who wishes to get to his destination safely, get to his destination in a respectable time, get to his or her destination, let alone enjoy the trip and benefit from the trip and learn from the trip now. And also to minimize one's expenses, one's injuries, one's fatigue. لَقَدْ لَقِينَا فِي سَفَرِنَا هَذَا نَصَبًا. He said, we became very tired in this trip of ours. So this hadith, it teaches us that seeking ilm, first and foremost, we already explained, fa'idah A is that it's for everybody. Fa'idah C is that from the virtues of talab al-ilm is that it leads to Jannah. Well known. Fa'idah B in the middle, that's known, but often neglected, is that there is a way of seeking knowledge, which is known. But we notice we say it, but our actions prove otherwise oftentimes. So with that being said, we have to learn, we have to talk about getting a driver's license, getting a passport, being on time at the airport security, what to pack and what not to pack. Don't overpack. What snacks, what drinks can you take on a plane? What accessories can you take on a plane? How long is the ride? Jet lag, and the list goes forward. All of the different nooks and crannies of traveling by air, let alone by land, by sea. You have to learn all of these things. So when we talk about the way of seeking knowledge, jumlatan wa tafsilan, the general way, and the actual specifics, the specific details. And most importantly, when a person is trying to be from the tulab al-ilm, and inshallah Allah has blessed him to be like that, and you're seeking knowledge for some time now, for some years, and you're really applying yourself, you're really doing it, you're really on it, then you have to learn the daqa'iq and the lataif, the subtleties of seeking ilm. The what? The subtleties, the finely tuned details of how to seek knowledge. Just like a traveler, a first-class traveler, a world-class traveler is savvy. They know exactly what time to get to the airport. Not too late, not too early. They know when to push their luck, quote unquote. I don't have to be there 3 hours. I can do this, I can do that. They know exactly what to put on their carry-on, how heavy. They can feel the suitcase without a scale. They said, this is 50 pounds, this is less than 50 pounds. They know what things will make them comfortable on the plane. I don't need a neck pillow. It's going to get in the way. It's cumbersome. This cover is warmer, it's thinner, it's this, it's that. These snacks I like, so on. They know what to do. And they enjoy their trip because they've traveled so much. They've experienced so much. They've seen so much. So they have the general way of traveling. They have the specifics of traveling. And then they have the subtleties and the delicacies of traveling according to their own tastes. Everybody clear on this? Their own taste. They know what's useful and what is useless. They know which is too much and which is too little. They know how long it's going to last, how little, etc. Everybody clear on this? So seeking knowledge, you have to have jumlatan, you have to have general, you have to have the tafsilat, the specifics, and then you have to have the special, finely tuned things with regards to seeking knowledge, whether they're shared among all or whether they are finely tuned to your specific likings, tricks of the trade that you've picked up and learned. So with that being said, seeking ilm is a road. And all three tiers apply to that road. One of the challenges, one of the obstacles, one of the roadblocks, one of the things that can make you have a bad trip or spoil your trip or minimize the benefit of your trip, your maslak, your tariq, is the worldly life. And oftentimes when Muslims say worldly life, most of us, we automatically think in a negative and derogatory sense. Hayatul dunya, it's haram. Something that's haram. It's a bad thing. And that's not accurate. وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. Allah said, don't forget the portion of the worldly life. Talking about Musa alayhi salam and Qarun. The worldly life includes your children, your family, your work, your house, your health. All things that are necessary for you to be able to seek knowledge. That's in general, let alone if you're the underdog and you're handicapped by being a woman or a sister, which most people automatically think, by having children, by having a husband, by having to work, by having to do this and do that. So with that being said, the worldly life and how to balance it with seeking ilm. How do I seek knowledge? If I had a nickel for every time I was asked that question, online or in person, how can a sister seek knowledge? How can a sister learn and study? Why aren't there any universities for women in Saudi? I can't go to Medina. Why do I need a mahram? Just the other day we were asked in Ottawa, do I need a mahram to travel overseas? What if my father says no? If I had a nickel for every time I was asked this question, and for this negative or positive, real or unrealistic stigma that many sisters have, and many men have, that women are at an automatic disadvantage at seeking knowledge. And one of the biggest reasons behind the automatic disadvantage is the what? Is the dunya. Correct? Is the what? Is the dunya, the worldly life. And it doesn't mean that the worldly life is something that's what? Haram. Negative, let alone what? Haram. Family, life. So with all of that being said, what are one of the things which will level out the playing field? Neutralize the advantage and make it a bit fairer. What are one of these tools? One of these concepts? You have a bigger person and a smaller person. Naam, David and Goliath. Naam, Dawood and Jalut. It has to be the smaller one, the underdog, the one who is at a disadvantage, has to have some type of mental, physical, spiritual, secret weapon that allows, not necessarily for this 100% equal and fair, but at least do what? Close the gap, what? A bit. Everybody understand this? So when it comes to seeking knowledge, you have children, you have husbands, fathers, this, that, work, school, whatever you have to do. Everyone is different. What are one of the things which allows you to balance more and also allows you to keep an imbalance as well, i.e. adding more to the side of knowledge, which is heavier. Everybody clear on this or not? This is something that a few of us may know about, many of us may all may know about it, but oftentimes we forget about it. And we become very, very rusty in this concept. The concept is a chapter that we're going to read today, but then hopefully we'll read the entire chapter from one of the best books of the modern day, current age regarding talab al-ilm. We always mention and talk about the classical books and the classic books of the earlier scholars of Islam. No doubt about that. But that doesn't mean, nor does that necessitate, that the modern day books or the current books or the later scholars haven't wrote and put forth anything which is beneficial as well. And any modern day classics or modern day masterpieces. This book is called An-Nubadh fi Adabi Talab al-Ilm. An-Nubadh fi Adabi Talab al-Ilm. The author is from Kuwait, Sheikh Hamad Uthman, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, who's well known, respected in the lands of Kuwait. On page 100 in the book, it's the 35th chapter. The author says, تقديم طلب العلم على سائر العبادات المندوبة في حال المزاحمة. تقديم طلب العلم على سائر العبادات المندوبة في حال المزاحمة. The 35th chapter, the 35th concept, the 35th technique. He says تقديم طلب العلم على سائر العبادات المندوبة في حال المزاحمة. He says that when there is a traffic jam, when your schedule is cluttered and flooded, when there isn't a lot of time, there isn't a lot of space, and there are things and people, this and that, pulling and tugging for your attention and for your energy and for your efforts, he says, then seeking knowledge must be given precedence. Giving precedence to seeking knowledge over all other recommended acts of ibadah. Recommended acts of ibadah. Put knowledge first if there isn't enough time for both. If there is muzahama, I don't have enough time to do this and do that, so I have to pick one of the two. I don't have enough time to get all three done, so I have to do one and leave the other two. Once more, he says, تقديم طلب العلم على سائر العبادات المندوبة في حال المزاحمة. Giving precedence to seeking knowledge over other acts of recommended ibadah when there isn't enough time to do all. So, you may say, what does this have to do with the worldly dunya, the hayat dunya? You said hayat dunya, now you're saying ibadat manduba. We're making a qiyas. And that qiyas is what? Is that if you give talab al-ilm precedence over recommended acts of ibadah, then what about giving precedence of talab al-ilm over recommended acts of dunya? Everybody clear on this? Everybody clear on this or not? If you put ilm before recommended service to Allah, then what is the case of giving precedence to ilm over recommended, we never said obligatory, we said recommended service or rights to the slaves of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Mother, father, husband, even your children. Even your what? Even your children. Mandatory things, neglect the obligatory actions of Islam, no one said that. Cause yourself harm, physical, mental harm, for seeking ilm, something that's dururi, that you have to do. We never said that. But at least recommend it. It's a good thing for me to visit this person, take this extra class, make this extra money, get married, whatever the case is. It's a good thing. But in this case, in this instance, it isn't necessarily mandatory. It isn't necessarily obligatory. It isn't necessarily something that I have to do. So when push comes to shove, there isn't enough room for both. Then at least I'm going to put forth the knowledge, even if it's extra knowledge, over the extra things of the worldly life. Because one is supposed to put them before, or put them before extra acts of what? Ibadah, let alone dunya. Now, obviously, I can't say all, but there are many of us who know this. Now, we know this. We've heard it before in a lecture. But the average person from among us on a daily basis isn't this critical and isn't this vigilant with his time. And it comes in different ways. One way is I can do all of it. And you're being unrealistic with yourself. I can do it all. I can do this and do this and do that and do that. You're being unrealistic. That's one way of being deceived. Another way is just being ignorant of it. Let me go forth and do the extra ibadah, the supererogatory ibadah, the voluntary ibadah. Does this mean that we're scorning the ibadah? No. We're disdaining worship? No. Worship is not important. That isn't the point at all. But the author clearly made a qaid. He says, fi hal al-muzahama. At the time of what? It's not enough time. Everybody understand this? It's not a what? It's not enough time. So the smart student of knowledge, who's already against the dunya, let alone a sister, whom the people, not all, but many, if not most, automatically think she shouldn't even be seeking knowledge. And don't think it's just a man-woman thing. Don't think that. Rather, there are many sisters, women, mothers, aunts, grandmothers. They have been conditioned. They were never taught how to read or write. They never went to a madrasa. And they've been taught you shouldn't seek knowledge. So it could be your mother or your aunt or the old sister in the masjid is saying, don't seek knowledge. Don't busy yourself with that. It doesn't just have to be a man. Everybody clear on this? That's how the shaitan tricks you as well, thinking that it's just a man. Let alone a man. Whoever that person is. It could be your son, your father, your mother, whoever it is. So if you're automatically at a disadvantage with others, and then the situation gets even worse now, when you yourself accept it, and you make your own self at a disadvantage. You make your own self you accept your destiny that's been predestined on you by other men and other women, not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's even worse now. You know what? Maybe they're right. Yeah, maybe they're right. Yeah. I can't do it. It's not enough. I'm wasting my time. This class, that class, it's no point. So if you're at a disadvantage of all of this, this is going to be one of your secret weapons right here. Is that not only is it permissible, but it's also a means of fiqh and hikmah to have this attitude. That when there is a clash, when there isn't enough time for both, the knowledge has to come before anything and everything else. Even if it's service to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this may be something for the nafs, a little difficult to accept in the beginning. Now, everybody clear on this? But it's very important. Tayyib. So we understand the chapter heading now, inshallah? Tayyib. Let's read it. Bismillah. I think you may have downloaded the book.
Yeah.
Bismillah.
The whole chapter?
قال ابن عباس.
قال ابن عباس رضي الله عنهما تذاكروا العلم بعض ليلة أحب إلي من إحيائها. وقال
مطرف
بن عبد الله الشخير فضل العلم خير من فضل العبادة وخير
دينكم الورع.
إلى انتهى. وقال الزهري ما عبد الله بمثل الفقه. وقال سفيان الثوري لا أعلم شيئا من الأعمال أفضل من طلب العلم أو الحديث لمن حسنت نيته. وقال الشافعي طلب العلم أفضل من صلاة النافلة. وقال مهنا قلت لأحمد حدثنا ما أفضل الأعمال.
حدثنا
ما أفضل الأعمال. قال طلب العلم. وكان أحمد يعظم أبا زرعة وإذا جالسه ترك أحمد نوافله واشتغل بمذاكرة أبي زرعة.
طيب. Jazakallah khairun. Says here on page 100, the author, he doesn't start off with kalam, with introduction. He goes right into the main style of the book, which is Sawqul Athar, quoting the narrations, mission narrations from the Sahaba, from the Imams, from the Salaf al-Salih, quoting the Athar. The first is that which is reported by Abdullah ibn Abbas radiyallahu anhuma. He says, تذاكر العلم بعض ليلة أحب إلي من إحيائها. Listen carefully. He says to spend a part of the night reviewing knowledge is better than staying up the whole night in prayer. Reviewing knowledge for a part of the night is better than إحيائها, keeping the whole night alive. Pay close attention that the author, he mentioned this athar, and it doesn't say ta'allum, learning knowledge. But he said what? Reviewing knowledge, let alone getting something new. But this is something that you already know. In other words, for you to sit down and just talk about it and review it and pass it from sister to sister, that in itself, he said he considered to be better than staying up the entire night. So what is the case with regards to spending time and learning something new from the deen that's going to help you, that's going to help your family, that's going to help your community? Bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala. It says in the footnotes, رواه البيهقي في المدخل. This athar is collected by al-Bayhaqi in his book Al-Madkhal. Then the next narration of Mutarrif ibn Abdullah ibn al-Shikhir, he says, فضل العلم خير من فضل العبادة وخير دينكم الورع. He says the superiority of knowledge is better than that of ibadah. I.e., what is meant by here, ibadah? Aywa, nawafil, the extra ibadah. And the best aspect of your religion, the best practice of your religion is wara', is a high level of piety and avoiding things which are doubtful and dubious, avoiding things which are questionable. This has been collected by Abu Khaythama Zuhair ibn Harb in his book Kitab al-Ilm. There's another version of this narration in which the Prophet ﷺ is quoted to have said this. And perhaps this version is asah, that is mawquf and not marfu'. Then he quotes Az-Zuhri rahimahullah ta'ala saying, مَا عُبِدَ اللَّهُ بِمِثْلِ الْفِقْهِ. He says, there isn't an act of worship that can be offered to Allah greater than fiqh. Allahu Akbar. There isn't an act of worship that can be offered to Allah greater than fiqh, al-fahm, having wisdom and understanding of the religion. Afterwards, he quotes Sufyan al-Thawri, who said, for those who have proper intentions, I don't know anything which is more virtuous than seeking ilm and hadith. Seeking ilm and or hadith. For those who have proper intentions, I don't know of something that's more virtuous. Ash-Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala, he said, seeking knowledge is better than extra prayers. Muhanna, the disciple of Imam Ahmed, he asked Ahmed, he told Ahmed, he says, hadithna, tell us, what are the best deeds? Imam Ahmed says, seeking knowledge. He says, seeking knowledge. It also mentions Imam Ahmed rahimahullah had a great deal of respect for Abu Zur'ah al-Razi, the great hadith master from Persia. And whenever Ahmed would sit with him, i.e. to review, i.e. to debate, i.e. to learn from him actually, he would leave off all other acts of ibadah and he would just focus on sparring with Abu Zur'ah, focus on fencing with him, mudhakara, trading fawaid, reminding each other of the fawaid. So we see a consistent theme in all of these different athar and how the Salaf al-Salih, despite their different times, obviously Az-Zuhri is not like Thawri, Zuhri is earlier, Abdullah ibn Abbas, of course, is not like Imam Ahmed, but the people who came before us, how they looked at and how far their vision was with regards to when there isn't enough time to do both. Or even if it may be enough time, but this thing is just so sweet and excellent this is that which necessitates my time and attention and my focus. And that is ilm over other acts of ibadah. فضلي. ولما قال ابن المبارك
ولما قال ابن مبارك ما رأيت أحدا ارتفع مثل مالك ليس له كثير صلاة ولا صيام إلا أن تكون له سريرة. تعقبه الذهبي بقوله ما كان عليه من العلم ونشره أفضل من نوافل الصوم والصلاة لمن أراد به الله.
طيب, then he quotes Abdullah ibn al-Mubarak, who said, I never saw a person who blew up like Imam Malik. That's the meaning of that. Irtafa'a, as we say in our culture. Who became skyrocketed like Imam Malik. So famous, so popular. He didn't pray an abundance, meaning extra. He didn't do an abundance of extra fasting unless he did it in secret. إِلَّا أَن تَكُونُ سَرِيرًا. Ibn al-Mubarak is saying, I didn't see him. Unless he had a great way of hiding it, he wasn't known for doing these things in abundance. Al-Dhahabi, he said about this athar, ما كان عليه من العلم ونشره أفضل من نوافل الصوم والصلاة لمن أراد به الله. He says what Imam Malik was busying himself with of knowledge, learning and teaching was better than the supererogatory acts of ibadah for the one who intends Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sincerity. He says that was best. ولما كتب العمري
العابد إلى مالك يحضه على الانفراد والعمل كتب إليه الإمام مالك إن الله قسم الأعمال كما قسم الأرزاق
فرب رجل
فتح له في الصلاة ولم
يفتح له
في الصوم وآخر فتح له في الصدقة ولم يفتح له في الصوم وآخر فتح له في الجهاد. فنشر العلم من أفضل أعمال البر وقد رضيت بما فتح لي فيه وما أظن ما أنا فيه بدون ما أنت فيه وأرجو أن يكون
كلانا على خير
وبر.
طيب, Abdullah ibn Umar al-Umari was a great worshipper. He wasn't the strongest narrator of hadith, but he was a great worshipper. They said he had sajda mark, hinna in his beard, turban. He was a great worshipper, very, very, very virtuous man. He wrote a letter to Imam Malik, rahimahullah, and he was requesting Imam Malik to do some things. He was requesting, he says, al-infirad, to avoid the people. Make uzla, stay away from the people. You have the politicians, the leaders, this one, that one, this group, stay away from all of them to the best of your ability, and make more extra ibadah, have more zuhd, stay away. Imam Malik corresponded with him saying, indeed Allah Azza wa Jalla is the one who has chosen certain slaves for certain things. He split it up, just like Allah has split up and chosen certain people for wealth. He made you wealthy, he made this person poor. Imam Malik, he said, a man, perhaps Allah blessed him to be a person of prayer. But it's not the case with extra fasting. A man was made a person of generosity, charity. And he wasn't necessarily given another act of ibadah, jihad, etc. Seeking knowledge, spreading knowledge is from the best acts of piety, of birr. And I'm pleased with what Allah has given me. I'm happy with my field. I'm happy with what Allah Azza wa Jalla has made me inclined towards. Do we have this attitude? I'm good to seek knowledge, but I wish I was a doctor or engineer. I wish I was this, I wish I was that. Are we really pleased? If Allah Azza wa Jalla made you naturally inclined towards being a bookworm, you should be happy with that. Alhamdulillah. You should be happy that you're bound towards scholastics. That's a good thing. It's praiseworthy. It isn't something to be shy and embarrassed about. as it is our modern day culture today. No one wants to be a nerd, a bookworm. Everyone wants to be cool and hip. He says, I'm pleased with what Allah has given me. And what I'm doing, what I busy myself with, I don't see it being no less than what you're doing. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, both of us are doing that which is right, that which is positive. Look at the tawadu of Imam Malik and the respect that they had among each other. Even though Imam Malik was clearly right. وقال النووي رحمه الله فهذه أحرف
من أطراف ما جاء في توضيح الاشتغال بالعلم على العبادة وجاء عن جماعات من السلف ممن لم أذكره نحو ما ذكرت والحاصل أنهم متفقون على أن الاشتغال بالعلم أفضل من الاشتغال بنوافل الصوم والصلاة والتسبيح ونحو ذلك من نوافل عبادات البدن ومن دلائله سوى ما سبق أن نفع العلم يعم صاحبه والمسلمين والنوافل المذكورة مختصة به ولأن العلماء ورثة الأنبياء ولا يوصف المتعبدون بذلك ولأن العابد تابع للعالم مقتد به مقلد له في عبادته وغيرها واجب عليه طاعته ولا ينعكس ولأن العلم تبقى فائدته وأثره بعد صاحبه والنوافل تنقطع بموت صاحبها ولأن العلم صفة لله تعالى ولأن العلم فرض كفاية أعني العلم الذي كلامنا فيه فكان أفضل من النافلة وقد قال إمام الحرمين رحمه الله في كتابه الغياثي فرض الكفاية أفضل من فرض العين من حيث أن فاعله يسد مسد الأمة ويسقط الحرج عن الأمة وفرض العين قاصر عليه وبالله التوفيق.
طيب. Then he quotes An-Nawawi rahimahullah, not from the Salaf, died in the 7th century. In his book, in the introduction to Al-Majmu', the famous book of Shafi'i fiqh, he says, فَهَذِهِ أَحْرُف. He says, these are just a few pieces, a few samples, a few selections, just a few gems, a few, not a lot, just a few. What is mentioned from staying busy with knowledge, being superior over staying busy with worship. And some of the athar that have come from the Salaf al-Salih that I didn't even mention. In other words, it's summarized. He says, wal hasil, and in brief, he says in brief, what's meant here in brief? Wal hasil, in brief, he says, the ulama, the salaf, he says they agree that staying busy with seeking knowledge is better than busying yourself with supererogatory ibadah. Whether it be prayer, fasting, tasbih, things like this. Why? Kaif, you would write in your book. Kaif. How? He says, وَمِن دَلَائِلِهِ. You write it there, you write kaif. Or مَا الدَّلِيلُ عَلَى هَذَا مِن دَلَائِلِهِ. From the things that prove this, number one, that which was previously mentioned, مَا سَبَقَ. He says that the benefit of knowledge is for the one who seeks it and for the Muslims as a whole. And all of them are benefited. It broad brushes everybody. Extra acts of fasting, extra prayers, extra sadaqah, that's specific to the one who does them. Number two, you write al-wajh al-thani. You write what? Al-wajh al-thani. Naam? Al-wajh al-thani. That the ulama are the heirs of the prophets. And the monks, the people who make a lot of extra ibadah, they're never ever described like this. They're never described like that. Without no disrespect to them. But it doesn't say that the mu'tabidun, the ubad, the zuhad are the waratha of the anbiya. Al-wajh al-thalith, the third point. ولأن العابد تابع للعالم مقتد به مقلد له في عبادته وغيرها واجب عليه طاعته ولا ينعكس. Is that the worshipper, the monk, and obviously the scholar is a worshipper too, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about when it was the most distinguished characteristic. Now, distinguished characteristic. She's a very smart sister, and every sister has some type of intelligence, but her main feature, her greatest attribute is her intelligence. That's what we're talking about. The abid, the worshipper, the monk, comes after the alim. He's following the alim. He imitates the alim. He takes the rulings of the alim. And he has to obey the alim when the alim tells him about the kitab and the sunnah, and never the opposite. There's never a time in which the alim has to go to the worshipper and obey the worshipper and seek the emulation of the worshipper. Al-wajh al-rabi. Now, the fourth point. وَلِأَنَّ الْعِلْمَ تَبْقَى فَائِدَتُهُ وَأَثْرُهُ بَعْدَ صَاحِبِهِ وَالنَّوَافِلُ تَنْقَطِعُ بِمَوْتِ صَاحِبِهَا. When alim dies, his knowledge remains eternal. His knowledge remains to this day. And the worshipper, when he dies, his worship dies. How many people you think in the time of Noe made more ibadah than him, staying up at night, writing books? And in 2018, we say Noe. Riyadh al-Salihin, for the Hadith, Noe. Sharh Sahih Muslim. This book right now. How many other ibad from his time whose names we even know about? Who? Name me one. Yalla. Give me one. From Imam Nawawi's time. In Syria, that was well-known abid. How many do you think there were? A little or a lot? Taban, of course. And how many of them can you mention? But Nawawi's what? Household name. Nawawi's a what? Household name. Nawawi, he then says, point number 5. Look how deep this is. وَلِأَنَّ الْعِلْمَ صِفَةٌ لِلَّهِ تَعَالَى. And knowledge is an attribute of Allah. Allah Azza wa Jal is Al-Alim. أنزله بعلمه يعلم. Allah knows. Naam. قد علمنا. Naam. How many ayat? Allah talks about ilm as a name, as an attribute, naam, and also as an action. Pay close attention. A name, such as an ayah in which Allah says His name is Al-Alim, such as Hu Sami Al-Alim. Huh? Then in the action, or no, a sifa, afwan, a sifa. A sifa. الصفة عليم هذا اسم أنزله بعلمه. That's a sifa. And the action of fi'l is عالم. لا هذا اسم. يعلم خائنة الأعين وما تخفي الصدور مثلا. ها؟ طيب. let alone an أثر, a cause. علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. That's the verb and the athar. Man's knowledge today is from what? And ibadah. Look how deep that is. That is an attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if it's an attribute of Allah, then it's obviously kamal. And we know that there are many names of Allah and many attributes of Allah that are praiseworthy for the slaves to have as well. إِنَّ اللَّهَ رَفِيقٌ يُحِبُّ الرِّفْقِ. Allah is gentle and He loves what? Gentleness. And Allah Jamilun yuhibbul jamal. Allah is beautiful and He loves beauty. Allah loves knowledge. He's the most knowledge. He's the most learned. He's the all-knowing. Subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah. And Allah is al-qawi al-aziz. And He loves the strong. Al-mu'min al-qawi khayrun wa habib Allah min al-mu'min al-da'if fi kullin khayr. وهكذا. And there's some of Allah's names and attributes that are unbefitting for the slave. Abadan. Such as Jabbar, Mutakabbir, Al-Muta'al, Ar-Rahman. These things are unbefitting of the slave. No, he then says, point number 6 now, Al-Wajh al-Sadis, وَلِأَنَّ الْعِلْمَ فَرْضُ كِفَايَةٍ. And knowledge is something that's an obligation upon the Muslims as a whole, an obligation of the community of Muslims. And he says, A'ni, he's listen carefully, the knowledge that we're talking about, not talking about handasa and tib, not talking about astronomy, Arabic clearness, not saying those things are haram and bad and they aren't needed, but that's not what nobody's talking about. Point number 7. Or not even that, he says what? That because it's fard kifaya, it's better than fard ayn. كيف هذا? He says fard kifaya is afdal min fard ayn. And he quotes from Imam al-Haramain, who said, the reason why it's better is because the one who performs fard al-kifaya is looking out for all of the ummah. He's filling a major gap in the entire ummah. And fard ayn is only filling a gap for himself. He then says, and he also removes haraj. He removes the burden of responsibility and liability from all of the ummah. And fard ayn, he only removes the burden of responsibility from himself. Just stop and think about that one point. How deep that is. La ilaha illallah. Fardul kifaya is better than fard ayn. Moving forward, he then says, وقال الخطيب البغدادي
وطلب الحديث في هذا الزمان أفضل من سائر أنواع التطوع لأجل دروس السنن وخمولها وظهور البدع واستعلاء أهلها.
He says, Al-Khatib said, listen to this. He says, specifically about hadith. He says, seeking hadith fi hadha zaman. He died in the 5th century, 463. What would Khatib al-Baghdadi say about right now? About seeking hadith. Why is seeking hadith better than the extra acts of ibadah? He says, because the sunnah has become extinct. Durus as-sunan wa khumuliha. And if it isn't extinct, then it's low, it's meek, it's humble. No one wants to seek hadith. No one wants to be upon the sunnah. The majority of the Muslims, the scholars of the Muslims, the speakers of the Muslims, who wants to really be practicing the sunnah like that? Who wants to be wearing this and who wants to do this? It's khamila. It's not the main commercial thing that people want. And then number 2, he says, because innovations in their people, he says, isti'la, when they have taken over. Khatib, he said this in Iraq in the 5th century. What would he say in Ontario, Canada in 2018? فضل وقال البغوي
وفضل العلم على العبادة من حيث إن نفع العلم يتعدى إلى كافة الخلق وفيه إحياء الدين وهو تلو النبوة.
Al-Baghawi rahimahullah, he said, the reason why knowledge is better than ibadah, i.e. the supererogatory ibadah, is because the benefit that one gets from knowledge, it goes to everyone. It overlaps to everyone. And it is a means of reviving the deen. And this is like prophethood. It's like prophethood. وقال الحافظ ابن رجب
ومما يدل على تفضيل العلم على جميع النوافل أن العلم يجمع جميع فضائل الأعمال المتفرقة فالعلم أفضل أنواع الذكر وهو أفضل أنواع الجهاد.
Ibn Rajab said, and another thing that proves why this is the case is that seeking knowledge includes all other supererogatory acts of ibadah. You study Sunan Abi Dawood, you're going to come across salah, sadaqah, som, hajj, jihad, birr al-walidain, wasiyah, everything else. Knowledge is the best type of dhikr, and it's the best type of jihad. وقال أيضا
وقد نص الأئمة الأربعة على أن طلب العلم أفضل من صلاة النافلة والصلاة أفضل من الصيام المتطوع به فيكون العلم أفضل من الصيام من طريق الأولى فإن العلم مصاحب
مصباح
مصباح
يستضاء به
يستضاء به
في ظلمة
في ظلمة الجهل والهوى فمن سار
في طريق
على غير مصابيح
على غير
مصباح لم يأمن
لم يأمن
لم يأمن أن يقع في بئر بوار
في بئر بوار فيعطب.
فيعطب.
Ibn Rajab said, the four Imams have also mentioned that it's not just Imam Ahmad, it's not just Sufyan al-Thawri, the four Imams that the Muslims attribute themselves to today. They have said that seeking knowledge is better than recommended prayers. And prayer is better than recommended fasting. So therefore, knowledge is better than fasting بِطْرِيقِ الْأَوْلَى, making a qiyas. It's even greater, even better. Because knowledge is the lamp. It's the lantern. Knowledge is the light that allows you to walk, to travel in darkness. Lust, desire, whims of people. Anyone who travels without a light, there's no guarantee that he has that he won't fall into a deadly pit. A deadly pit. Or even deeper than that. You may be driving, you go into a pothole. He says, فَيَعْطَبْ, and then your car is messed up. Your tire, your rim is destroyed. You're not dead, your car is still fine, but you can't travel anymore. You gotta wait for a tow truck. What happens if your camel walks and it steps on something, and destroys its foot? It can't travel anymore because it's so dark and you don't know the path. وانظر إلى فقه ابن مسعود رضي الله عنه كيف كان يقل من الصوم لأنه يضعف بدنه ويقل نشاطه ويقول إنه يمنعني من قراءة القرآن وقراءة القرآن أحب إلي. الله أكبر. He says, look at the fiqh of Ibn Mas'ud, how precise he was. Allah be pleased with him. He said, Ibn Mas'ud used to make a little bit of extra fasting, just a little, because extra fasting weakens the body. And he would say, weak body prevents me from reading the Quran. Weakness of my body prevents me from reading the Quran, and reading the Quran is more beloved to me than extra fast. Look how beautiful that one statement is. And what would the people say today if they heard you say something like this? You never do this. We never see you doing this. We never see you here. We never see you. And a person may say, well, I like to sit and read from the Mus'haf. I like to sit and read this book. That's what makes me happy. That's what makes me tick. That's what keeps me upon the Sirat al-Mustaqeen, upon dhikr, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And this is the end of the chapter. So this goes to show us that the author, he gives an exotic blend of athar. Nawawi, Imam Haramain, Zuhri, Ibn Mas'ud, Sufyan Thawri, Shafi'i. Everybody understand this? To show you the diversity and how this is generally a universal concept. It's not just for the time of the Salaf. It's not just for Nawawi's time, for the medieval time. It was generally accepted by the ulama as a whole. So with this being said, we've read many, many statements which we ask Allah not to make proof against us, but rather a means of argument for our sake. If knowledge comes before acts of ibadah, then what is the case when it comes to friends, leisure, recreation, eating, drinking, sleeping, beyond the necessary, mandatory limit? Do you think that these great ulama who we read about day and night, you think they were the best and most cordial neighbors and family members? Being real, without no disrespect, do you think that? Do you think they had the best relations with all of their family? We didn't say uquq, we didn't say qati'ah, cutting off, but do you think they had the most time to do and take the extra step that many of us feel that we have to in this day? Some of the ulama of Islam, they would say about them, he knew more about the narratives of hadith than he knew about his own neighborhood. They would say he was more learned of the narratives of hadith than the people who lived in his village. He didn't even know all of them, but he knew who was in Kutub al-Sittah. So the point is, their life was simple, their life was basic, their life was relatively pure, and it wasn't tainted like our lives are today. And most of these people that we read about were men. So the time and place in which we live, and you being females, just ask yourself the question. I don't have to pose the question, you know better than I do. How many disadvantages do you have? How many people look at you as being unsuited for knowledge? How many of you, your own selves, shoot yourselves in the foot and make a defeatist attitude when it comes to seeking knowledge because you're a woman, let alone married, working, studying, family, and the list goes forward. So what can I do? I can't cut off my family. I can't look after my children and not, just abandon them. I can't just not look after them. I can't just do away with my responsibilities. But what you can do, bi'idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if you don't do it all of the time, you don't have to do it every single time. But from time to time, realize when there's muzahama, I have to prioritize. I have to prioritize. It would be nice to visit this person. It would be nice to do this extra thing with my children. It would be nice. But right now, I have to get this talab in right now. You don't have to do that every single time because that type of lifestyle, you got to be really about it, as we say. You have to really be seriously dedicated and devoted to ilm like that, which many of us, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي, Allahul Musta'an, I can't say I'm free from this. Most of us aren't really like that. And which we're really ready to sacrifice for knowledge on a major level and actually be a student of knowledge. So, bi'idhnillahi, these are some words of reminder, words of enlightenment. I pray that they won't fall upon deaf ears. I pray they won't fall upon sealed ears. And bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, we also pray that they won't fall upon hard and solid rocks, like hijara, stones, or even harder. So I ask Allah Azza wa Jal to bless you all, to gain your success in your seeking or your search of knowledge, and allow you to realize that knowledge doesn't come easily. Knowledge isn't obtained by a person just taking a mediocre, soft step, but there has to be sacrifice. There has to be things that you have to give up, and there has to be prioritizing at the time when push comes to shove, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala surely knows best. Wa jazakum Allahu khairan.